So, I'm not even really sure if this is a bad spot to try to record this. It probably is because I'm at the bus stop, hoping that the bus comes by. But I've been thinking a lot again lately about a video I made a little while ago about how I was also a 13-year-old. Now, it's obvious looking at the pictures that, like, the 13-year-old is in a Freemason family. I mean, shoot, who isn't? But, like, he's a part of the family, and it's not like a distant relative or something. That's the Mason. So it's like some iffy Greek letter stuff with that. But still, it's like, since I used to want to be like this person that kind of, no, not even kind of, I wanted to be the person that like achieved a lot of stuff younger. And I remember, like, when I was a lot younger, I'd always talk about how people think that you have to be a certain age to go to college, but really your parents just have to let you go. Although if you're going for like university and like a degree program or whatever they call it, you'd have to have a diploma. So typically, due to how homeschooling works, only people who've been homeschooled would even be able to get diplomas early easily. But anyways, even though that gate is exploitative, and I also had to deal with a lot of racial stuff, and it even blended into like my Cash for Kids system, Munchausen abuse, I still kind of did want to be in it because, like, the possibilities of you sometimes ending up in like a high position in the end, depending on how much MK Ultra they do on you and like how much they feel like they can use you. So that would have been exploitative anyways. And GATE is just the other side of special ed. So like there's a couple different branches or special ed branches of the school system branch of the Cash for Kids system. GATE is one of them. 504 IEP is one. Jim Crow racial placements are one. Of course, boarding schools and alternative schools. And GATE it's a part of the Cash for Kids system, just like all the other ones. It's SRA and MK Ultra as well. It's also RAMCO. And it's like, I know that I was lucky that I was hidden. And just like I mentioned in a recent video, I also know that even if I wouldn't have been really sabotaged, like, things still would have been used against me regardless. And I don't even mean with like the mental health system stuff and how I was a quote-unquote risky, smart black person that was dangerous, quote-unquote. I don't even mean that. I mean, like, if I didn't have the sabotagey type of Jezebelic abusers, I would have had the type that, like, push you into stuff, or if you make it just by your own will and effort, your abusers will run around bragging about all the things that you've achieved as if they helped you to get there, or as if they had like some part in it when they didn't. Like, that's common for like Jezebelic Asian people because of like Asian culture and their how they push for like matrix achievements, I guess I could call it. Kind of like the Tiger Mom thing that a lot of people know about, which is really common in Asian culture. The Jezebelic mom, or even if the son gets a higher grade than everybody else in the class, she still curses him out and beats him up. If I can find it, I'll put in the description, but there's this one documentary that was about pretty much child abuse as usual. It's what I would consider a part of the Cash for Kids system, just like Dr. Phil and Beyond Scared Straight. It shows like girls incarcerated. Well, yeah, that was a show, but a lot of them are documentaries where like they just make people's abuse situations entertainment. But anywho, there were some quote-unquote gifted kids, but really there were just kids who were being forced to like achieve things that they didn't even really want to achieve anyways. Like, one of the moms even like, she was even like a Munchausen type mom, and she was even accusing her son of possibly being autistic because he was able to remember like different highways and stuff because she forced him to sit down and do geology his whole life. And she was accusing him of having the autism label, which is bullcrap anyways. because he knew the stuff that she forced him to learn. But anyways, there was this one Asian boy, and he got a higher grade than everybody else in the class. And his mom was still mad at him because he didn't get 100, and he got like a 90 or something. So stuff like that. And, well, I don't even really want to go into the whole thing. I was going to talk about my relatives and like how the PD, autism, anointed prophetic thing, and how like they all like got good grades, and most of us, due to the abuse situations, didn't really get to go to school or finish school. But I already have a whole playlist about that kind of, and that'll be way somewhere else. But it's like, there's the actual gifted people that are sabotaged, become targeted individuals, and are taken out and labeled off as crazy and retarded by society. And then there's the fake gifted people that are forced where they are. And it's like, the people who really are gifted don't really want to be. It kind of reminds me of like how a lot of people, or everybody, wants to be a pastor to either prove themselves or to like tell people what to do, and maybe you can take advantage of people. And that's like one example I could think of. But realistically, people who are actually called to like be apostolic or prophetic or whatever in the world typically don't really want it, because it's not actually easy. Like with Moses, for example. In fact, that's a good example. Like being held at a high standard to like lead the people, and then having God get mad at you and all that stuff it's not easy. And then it's like, people see the fake gifted people that are forced to be where they're at and don't want to be there either, to be honest. Or people who are like industry plants, so they're born into these like bloodline families, or just families that are in these different religious organizations that are all branches of Freemasonry, like Catholicism, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, obviously the other Mason branches. They typically like help people get into high positions. But then like the really gifted people, even on a spiritual level, like as far as like anointed or prophetic, things like that, not even like people that can remember all the quote-unquote facts of man-made, flipped around history, white supremacist, revision, logic, bullcrap, science-based stuff, not like that. Not people who know a lot about that stuff, but like real gifted people, even people who aren't like gifted in a spiritual level, and maybe they are like a good chemist or something, they're going to be taken out. The government, or well, maybe not even the government, but somebody with more money who's down with them boys is going to like steal their invention, patent it, take the person out, maybe even kidnap them and experiment on them, steal their brain, put it in a jar, stuff like that. Real gifted people are taken out, and they typically don't really get to like these higher up places, because for one, a lot of them aren't willing to sell out for it either. Like throughout my life, I've always watched documentaries about different things. And I would always watch documentaries about homeless people and street kids and stuff like that. Way before I was out here, of course. It was always my favorite thing to do. And I always saw that homeless people and the street kids and stuff were always the smartest people. And realistically, when you really see things for what they are, it breaks you down. You commonly have a lot of bad experiences that go along with that also help you to see things for what they are. But aside from that, you're also commonly born like kind of awake to the bull crap of the world, and it eats at you. Just as I always talk about, King Solomon talked about how like the more you know, the more depressed you get, pretty much. And I always like compare it to this meme that's like those who know and those who don't know, or at least for how what I see the meme to mean anyways. So like it has a similar meaning. I'm trying to figure out how to get all this to make sense. So I think I should also explain like the screenshots. Some of the screenshots I threw in there because like they also make me think about the whole street kids aren't seen as kids thing, and like the weird standard that people of really any age are held at when they don't have any support or help. And then like one of the videos with the Asian guy, like, or one of them anyways, one of the Asian guys, the lighter skinned one, I'm pretty sure that's the same video where like I had some screenshots about how people were hating, and they were talking about how they're tired of 20-year-old kids and 20-year-old million and billionaires trying to tell people what to do, and how he can't possibly know what he's talking about because he's a kid. I put that in there because this whole topic also makes me think back to the whole street kids aren't seen as kids thing, but also the other thing that I commonly mention, which is that you're a kid or you're a quote-unquote child until somebody wants to have sex with you, make up an excuse to lock you up, or until you commit a crime, or until you supposedly commit a crime. You're a kid until you unalive your parents, stuff like that. It's all hypocritical and very biased. And I even noticed that like sexual predatory type people are commonly saying that like younger people, especially women, want to infantilize themselves, which realistically, people that go on rants like that are definitely like old people who are mad that younger people won't have sex with them. That's definitely what it is. And it's so funny because like people act like the term college kids is like a new term or something. But anywho, another thing. So I noticed a lot throughout the years that people who have like kids who like meet these high standards or like achieve like rare things, I guess I could say. Hopefully this is coming out right. Not like industry people, although these people could be industry people. But I do notice that even though these people may not be industry plant type people, they still already have rich families. But I think I see even more reasons why the families are rich. And it's like they don't like bash their kids, and they like encourage their kids to learn things. They don't sabotage their kids and do toxic stuff. And they like encourage their kids to achieve goals. They fund their kids projects and stuff like that. And like even back on my abuse evidence channels, I would always talk about how I noticed that Jezebelic people sabotage and destroy their kids' lives, and they drive them insane and stuff. Like for example, my older scapegoat sister, who they drove insane from like all the gaslighting about the SA and different things like that. They drive their kids crazy, and they cause a lot of other issues to play the victim in it. And they complain about how them and especially their kids haven't achieved anything, and like all their kids or most of them are not alive anymore, or they unalive themselves, or they're quote unquote crazy, or they're just broke or whatever, but they cause the issue. But I noticed that like, especially with the Toby kid and the darker skinned Asian dude, I noticed that they talk about how like their parents were supportive and how they like funded their projects and helped them with like learning how to code and stuff like that. And like the darker skinned Asian dude, which is in the screenshot of the video talking about he made a tech startup. In that video, I noticed that he even mentioned that like his parents didn't have a choice, and he didn't give them a choice on him like leaving school and going, I can't remember where he went, to like try to start his tech startup. And that's really interesting. And it's really funny because like in a lot of communities, if a kid was to say what he said, they would say he was grown and disrespectful and his parents know best. But those are the same people that don't have kids that have achieved the stuff that he has, because they have these weird mindsets that keep them in generational trauma, poverty, and all types of stuff. I also noticed with the Toby kid and a lot of other people, and even the darker skinned Asian dude that I mentioned, because I can't remember their names really, they talk about how like it's better to take risk and try to achieve these things when you're younger, because you still have a support system and a family to fall back on. But commonly that's not the case for like a lot of people, which is also at least a lot of people never being able to achieve these things in the first place. Although I do feel like if you could like figure out the basics, doing some things while homeless could be easier because like you're not putting all your money towards bills. But of course, for somebody who doesn't have like a toxic family system, you actually have a support system. You wouldn't even have to worry about the bills and stuff anyways because you'd have a family and parents to live with. So it's really interesting how this plays out. And I know that like a lot of people probably see this as like a pity party type thing, but this stuff does make me think more about why certain people just give up on hopes and dreams. Like I mentioned a lot, well not a lot, but I've mentioned a couple times in the past couple months. I'm pretty sure in the Whoopings of the NWO video and a couple, but I can't remember all of them. So before my parents became schizo-narc zombies, and even still now to be honest, my dad's always wanted to be a model, and my mom wanted to be a singer and probably some other stuff I'm sure. But the generational curses, the trauma, the soul fractures, the demons, the legal rights of the demons, the more sin you commit, all that stuff eventually like encapsulates people until they become what I call zombies, which I have 2 playlists about really. In fact, something else I could throw in, well, which is kind of what I was supposed to have already talked about anyways. Some of the screenshots at the beginning. Now, a couple of them I threw in because I thought they were funny. Like the one about the Weldon dude, he said that something about a DUI. But like the videos that a lot of people are making the past year or so, where they like have the title as I'm gonna tell you now what it took me 45 years to learn, or something like that, or I'm gonna tell you people in your 20s what it took me till I was 75 to learn, and some similar videos I think about with somewhat similar titles and themes are the ones where people are like how I became a self-made millionaire, and then in the title it'll say nobody cares about you, which typically is never actually said in the video, but it is true. But like I'm not in my 20s yet, but like I think about how it's approaching and how like with all the weird standards and how the Matrix is, it's definitely a scary time, and I can see why it is. And realistically, for the millions of us who have been through the cash for kids system, the human cash cow systems, still are, to be honest, still are trying to fight and get out of them, or just any abuse situation. Really, your whole life is kind of like a scary time where you're like, you don't know what's going to happen next, and it's all indecisive. And you learn from in the womb that you really don't have a lot of control. And sure, there's like some drug dealer with a bachelor's degree, like I've talked about before, who will come talk junk to you and say you survive off the kindness of others, which realistically is to a certain extent how life is supposed to go. And I mean, but they say that the people that like aren't surviving off the kindness of really, at least not people who shouldn't be being kind to them. But before I even go off into that, you're always gonna have people come and like talk junk to you and say that like you need to, what do people say? You should have made better choices. And it's really weird, especially when people say that the people that haven't really started their life yet to even start making choices. But it's like, you just have to ignore people, because at the end of the day, their focus is on stuff that isn't real. Their focus is on putting other people down and put themselves up, and to convince themselves that they're better than everybody else, and that they can take this stuff to the grave and to hell with them, because that's where they're running towards, because all they focus on is pride and arrogance and wealth and materialism. But anywho, to get back to the point, so I remember that like even a couple years ago, like someone was telling me that my life wasn't over and that my life hadn't even started yet because I'm still young, and people still say stuff like that to me. But I'm not gonna lie though, as I always mention, having people tell me that I'm grown and I need to figure stuff out and get my SHIT together my entire life really did confuse me. In fact, my entire life till this day, I'm constantly dealing with people telling me I'm a grown woman baby child. It's like all those things merged together, I guess. It's really interesting. Which can even go into like how, especially since like being out here, just seeing people younger than me, my age, even years older than me, just being able to like go to the skate park especially, and just like skate and stuff. It's really interesting just seeing people be able to just do like fun activities, because I think about like how me and my siblings would always get cursed out for stuff like that. Like I didn't play with toys at 8 anyways. I just had like some, what was it, Star Trek collector's items that me and my dad had got from a pawn shop, but I remember my grandma thought that they were toys, and they weren't. They were collector's items, but in her eyes they were toys. And so when I was 8, she came in my room and threw them away and said that I was too old to play with toys, even though I didn't play with toys anyways, because I wasn't really the type for that. It was too boring. But stuff like that, and that's honestly a very minor example. Like, I would always get cursed out for like being childish, and it's like, especially since like escaping my previous situation, just to being out here and getting the time to like be at the most peace ever and like relax and just like go to the skate park, even though I can't skate and don't have a skateboard. I really realized how now, and especially in my previous situation, I wasn't getting to do the things that I really should be getting to do that revolve around just hanging out and being at peace. And I mean, plenty of people don't. As I always say, most people raise themselves, which is why parent worship is really insane to me. People raise themselves and raise their younger siblings too. But anywho, I already thought my life was over way before it even started. And yeah, I still have people trying to make me feel like that, but then other people will be like, well, you're still young and all that. And it's really confusing. It kind of reminds me of a screenshot that I had in another video. I don't know if this was the Street Kids Aren't Seen as Kids video or if it was another one, but I know in the screenshot somebody was talking about how when you're in your 20s, you're always either told you're young and you still have time to figure things out, or you're told, well, and you're also told by some other people you're old enough and you should know better. And if I haven't learned anything else throughout my life, listening to other people will do nothing but have you pregnant with 19 kids, 39 baby daddies, and unaliving yourself for unalived by somebody else. That's what listening to other people gets you, including parents, depending on if you have the usual or if you're lucky. Like, I learned my mom's boyfriend in my previous situation right before leaving, and especially when I was in the Jim Crow self-confined placement, that the best tactic is grave rocking / stonewalling. Like, these days, a lot of times when people approach me and say stuff, I don't even respond, because honestly, a lot of people just approach me on some sexual crazy stuff anyways, so. But anywho, it also makes me think about this girl I knew who fell into the usual cycle of chasing chomos. She got plenty of charges from her abusive mom, false charges of course, for domestic violence since before 12. She got charged with her own abuse, as I talk about all the time. I've met so many people throughout my life that have been charged with quote-unquote CP, and as I always say, the kid victims get charged, but like stuff like that, that messes up your life and pretty much makes it to where you probably won't be able to do anything well before you even get into your teen years. So it's like when things like that happen, you're kind of already like put in a bad predicament. She's white, but I would say especially like if you're not white, charges could like make things so much worse. But I mean, those types of charges, people don't really think about the fact that the victims get charged for their own abuse, so they may think, well, did you do this to somebody else, and stuff like that could happen, unless they like really look at the date and when it happened and see that like you were 9 or whatever yourself. But anywho, to get to the point, I remember she was talking to me about how, this was some months ago, she was saying, I'm about to turn I'm turning 17 next year, and that sounds scary, and that's like a big number, and it sounds serious. And she always talks about she never pictured herself even surviving and making it to the age that she's at now, and how she never saw herself making it to 17, which actually I think she's 17 now, so I think she turns 18 next year actually. No, really, she turns 18 in like a few months, so I can only imagine how much more scared she is now. And it's like, I really see how that could go though, and I'm not gonna lie, it is scary though. And I was kind of laughing about it. I mean, I get what she means, but I was laughing about it then, especially when she was talking about how she was scared to turn 17 because it sounds serious, and how like she needs to get a job and stuff. But she tried before, but due to trauma symptoms and like getting cursed out of fast food, it didn't really go well together. But people, I don't know, I guess I could just go back to that thing that I mentioned in a couple other videos with the gate post on Reddit and the CPTSD sub, and how somebody talked about how they went to school for sociology and they learned that your zip code you grow up in dictates your future and like how your life turns out. And as I said in 2 videos, I wouldn't even say that your zip code dictates anything. Your trauma, your family system, and your abuse, whether you escape your abuse or not, whether you break it from cognitive dissonance, and whether you can be the generational curse breaker and seek out what is truth, dictates how things turn out. But I'll also say that there is life outside the matrix. It's definitely not easy either, but life is never easy either way. Like, people either try to do this whole the grass is greener on the other side thing, or they try to like fearmonger you into not leaving your abusive family system, because they'll tell you about all the dangers of the world, which also keeps people from leaving and going out and living their own life and having a job and stuff. But realistically, people have different ideas of what a life is, and the Matrix has told people that there's only one way to live, which is why people hate homeless people, or the people that they label off as homeless that are nomads or vagabonds, because they see that people have found out another way to live that doesn't revolve around doing a lot of things you don't want to do and shouldn't have to do, and being taken advantage of all the time. And that's another reason why I'd rather just live the way I always saw myself living and do what I always wanted to do anyways. Because living in the forest is definitely better. I do totally wish, as I mentioned pretty often, that I would have left my abuse situation before I became chronically ill, because that causes like a lot of barriers that kind of make a lot of things in or outside of a building or house kind of difficult. But I'd rather just live naturally anyways. And it's like, I was hidden for a reason. I didn't want to be famous, and I still don't. But I do know that like if I would have like really got where I wanted to get and accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish as young as I wanted to, then it would have like probably led to fame that I didn't want, and that would cause a lot of issues. I don't want people to know who I am because of all the things that go along with it, and I don't want people to control what I think or believe more than people already try to on a daily basis. And but as I say, never give up is toxic positivity, because really, I wouldn't even say giving up, because I don't even really like that term. Moving on, self-preservation, and focusing on what you really should be doing instead of like what people tell you have to do, and sometimes instead of what you may want to do. And it's kind of like, I don't even know what to say about it. But oh yeah, something I forgot. So as I mentioned before, when I was a lot younger, since I was neglected to be raised by YouTube, since I was 6, or no, more so 7, yeah, 7 up, even younger, but especially 7 up, I found out about anonymous hackers and the real life superhero movement, which are two completely separate things, but you would think they go together. I wanted to be an anonymous hacker, and I'm not gonna lie, I never managed to learn how to code. Like, I wanted books, I always wanted a soldering iron, and I recently bought myself one actually, which doesn't really have anything to do with hacking. It does have something to do with like electronic engineering, but I always wanted a soldering iron, but I was never able to get one, and then when I did have the money, I had to spend it on something else. Then like when my cash for kids system Munchausen abuse started, if I would have had something like a soldering iron, they probably would have been like, oh, a bad black kid with ADHD who's gonna kill somebody with a soldering iron, and you're probably planning on hurting somebody because you're a nigger and you want to kill people because that's what you guys do because you're deranged people with ADHD and you're all retarded because that's how the cash for kids system abuse went. There was a lot of racial stuff with that. So it's like that caused issues, and then like the being sabotaging, like I even remember, in fact I have a video about this still, that's on one of the unlisted ones. I remember when the Jim Crow self-confined placement staff said that like, if I wanted to build robots and I wanted to like learn coding and get coding books, and I wanted to do electronic engineering, if my mom is getting like a disability check for me, then that's the disability check money should be going towards, not for her boyfriend to get cigarettes and stuff. And the Jim Crow self-confined placement were really, really abusive. I still have videos about that, or of that really. I still have videos of that unlisted on the evidence channels. I forget about how much stuff I actually have left. But that was one of the many things that the cash for kids system staff, specifically the Jim Crow self-confined placement staff, said to me that was honestly really true about my situation. They were like, the money's supposed, well, I mean, really people say the money's supposed to be for like the kid, but that's really not true. Realistically, the money does belong to your parents, just like with the stimulus checks. I mean, it would be nice if people were getting their money and if it was like being put in like a bank account to be saved up for them to like have the money one day, but that's not how those situations go. But yeah, I remember that, and like I can still learn those things now, and I still do try now, but I feel like especially with the iatrogenic metabolic issues and mitochondrial dysfunction and how that affects like cognitive ability, and then of course the brain damage, like I don't even have like the mental capacity for like learning too much of anything anymore. Like I really feel like the things that I've researched my whole life that I know now, talk about often, that's as far as I'm gonna get pretty much, because like I don't really feel like I even have the capacity to learn anything anymore. Like I remember after all the drugging and the brain damage, I couldn't even play video games anymore, which it kind of started to get boring because I only like playing with other people, and playing by myself was pretty depressing. But I don't even have like the capacity anymore for that, because like for whatever reason, due to the iatrogenic brain damage, I have like some weird issues where I'm just like really impatient. And I also noticed that it has something to do with like the veil thinning, well not even the veil thinning, the like dispensation shifts, especially since 2019, right before the pandemic hit, like the urgency feeling about all the things that are about to happen. I think that's like a prophetic thing as well. I'm kind of choking, but aside from the prophetic part, there's also like a brain damage side, and even like with the metabolic issues, not being able to produce enough insulin for my brain to really function all the time, and then just the brain damage and the hypoglycemia that causes cognitive issues just makes it hard for me to think, and it kind of gives this like impending doom feeling, especially when my blood sugar's low. And so it's like an anxious feeling where I can't really like sit down and do things, and it's hard for me to like remember things and stuff like that. It has gotten better since my health has gotten better. Like in my previous situation, since most buildings in the US have mold, I had like bad mold toxicity, and it got to me more because due to the drugging, my organ function was pretty poor. Also because I couldn't digest food, so I didn't have like enough nutrients, and I was really malnourished. And it's like, I don't know, just like doing a lot of things. Like I kind of wish that like I would have like tried harder to learn stuff in the past, even when I didn't really have the ability to like use the knowledge and like really practice with coding or whatever else. But I mean, I could still learn, but it's kind of like, I don't know, I'd rather just like go live in like a mountain somewhere. And then of course there's AI coding, but even though like makes people feel really upset and feel like their protected field is going to become oversaturated, which I mean it definitely will, but still like just like with AI book writing, I mean you have to still know what you're doing and have it planned out, or else it's going to come out like really drifty and crazy, or you have to have money to actually pay for good software. Like for example, like I'm not changing the whole subject. To change the subject is something else I wanted to talk about. The whole feeling like I have something to prove, or not even really feeling like I have something to prove, wanting to have something to prove and wanting to achieve things young. So like I was supposed to skip grades and I wanted to skip grades, but that didn't get to happen because like different things with the abuse situation and not really getting to be in school or being in the Cash for Kids system. And then another thing is like, for example, being able to read at a college level when you're a 4-year-old, and even like older than that, like that's great. But as you get older, it's not really something to like brag about anymore. And then it's kind of like whatever. I even think that like a lot of the people that run around invalidating people because other people just have a victim complex, quote unquote, because I have a house and a car now, those types of people that I mention all the time, I think they're even kind of stuck in these types of mindsets of like wanting to prove something to people and wanting to like have something to brag about. But I mean, none of that stuff really matters. And I mean, it is great and it sounds great, but it's kind of whatever. It's even kind of similar to like how a lot of people in abuse situations wish that there were like that abuse kid on the news who ended up being unalived, or who just ended up on the news because they want people to know about their situation and care. But all the care that people have in comment sections of these news videos, it's all fake. People don't give a crap. They're never going to care. If they did care, they'd help you. They'd be the change they want to see. And you have to save yourself because nobody's going to save you. Like I even remember in a BPD group some years ago, somebody had made a post and they were like, does anybody else ever wish that like your abuse situation was worse, or that you would have ended up dying or being on the news, so that way people will like know about your situation and care? But the thing is, everybody around already knows. People just don't care. But then once you pass away from your abuse, then people will be like, oh, I wish I would have been there because I would have done something. No, they wouldn't have. But it's kind of like that. You're kind of always stuck in this mindset in society of feeling like you have something to prove to people that people already know and never going to really care about. Just like with the whole Gabriel Fernandez things I mentioned before, if he would have unalived his parents, he would have been the bad guy, and you would have been hearing all the stuff that I call Sixth Commandment culture. Or if he would have ran away, or got kicked out even, he would have been the bad guy. Or maybe it was Gabriel Hernandez. I can't remember if it was Hernandez or Fernandez, but it was something like that. People, it's just all fake care. That's all I can really say about that. I'm not saying that everybody like literally doesn't care, but it's all a lot of hypocrisy and bias stuff. If he wouldn't have got unalived, people would have shown their true colors even more. Then there's a lot I could say about that, but I talk about that stuff all the time. But going back to the whole reading thing, it still is kind of funny though, because like a good majority of people, including even myself, a lot of us in America are like pretty illiterate, and it's like, wait a minute, hold up. It's like the bus is jerking, but what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was going to the point of how like these days, anybody who can read and count past 5 gets the autism label, because like they call it hyperlexia now to be able to read. But it's really interesting. But still, it's like being able to read at a college level when you're really young, still just is more impressive than like once you get older, a lot older, even though still a lot of people really can't read, which is unfortunate. which even goes back to another thing, which is that I never really have seen my reading ability as like all that. I just see it as like the failure of the systems, or not even the failure of the systems, the win of the systems that want people to be illiterate anyways. Like I remember, even before the Cash for Kids system my child introduced me moving in with my mom, like school systems. Wait, no, because I didn't go to the white schools, quote unquote, until I moved in with my mom. So actually no. Because me and my siblings were like the only kids in the neighborhood who were allowed to go to the white schools. Which is how redlining goes, but that could be its own video. But, anywho, there was always this issue with like me being able to read and how it was like impressive, and like the teachers would always like down talk to other kids, which I hate stuff like that. I hate when people try to like pit people against each other. But when I went to the white schools as well, there was like this issue that teachers had because I could read better than the white kids too, and it's like, well, I mean, if I'm the only one in the school that can read, there's an issue. And like on the end of grade test, which unfortunately I only took them up to 5th grade because I only went up to 5th grade. And then even like with a little bit of school I did go to for a few months in between, like even still then teachers felt like I should skip grades and like due to my test scores, but I feel like it doesn't even really matter in them because none of it's real, and it's like all indoctrination. But no, I forgot what I was supposed to say. I was supposed to say that on all of the end of grade tests I would score highest in the school and one of the highest in the state, especially for the reading one. But it's kind of like I feel like there's an issue if only a few people can read. I wouldn't even want to say that like I have some special ability. I just feel like there's like a bigger agenda of why most people can't read.